Well, hello. Welcome back. So, on this occasion, I'm not going to be talking about a book. I'm not going to be talking about a movie. I will be talking about a commentary on a series. This series is based on a video game. It's called The Last of Us. And how this kind of came about was I was watching a video that was recommended by Hasan Piker. Hasan Piker was reacting to Ben Shapiro, who, if you're not aware, Ben Shapiro is a right-wing commentator. Now, I say commentator and not news because I don't really consider him or his network to be a news source. However, that aside, Ben had been talking about the series, The Last of Us, or more specifically about an episode that was recently released. It was episode 3. Now, to explain what The Last of Us is, for those who don't know what The Last of Us is, first of all, it's a video game that was released quite a few years ago. And it's one of those zombie apocalypse video games that really does fall into that kind of tropes that you might see in zombie movies. And so in The Last of Us, you follow two people. You follow Joel, who is, you could say, like a middle-aged to later. He lost his family during the beginning of the apocalypse. He lost his daughter, and he has been trying to survive ever since, doing whatever means possible. He's later met up with, well, not later, but in the same beginning, in the introduction, he is joined by another character called Ellie. Ellie is a girl who got bitten by a zombie, but for some reason she's not infected, so they're trying to take her to this group known as the Fireflies, so that they can, find out if they can get a cure or not. Now, the whole thing, without going into much details on the story or on the plot, what happens during the game is that you start discovering this world where, of course, the main trope, the zombies are a constant danger, but what's even more dangerous and what's more present is mankind itself. People just being worse than the monsters that you see as the zombies. People who aren't zombies can be worse. They torture others, they use them for their own gains. That type of thing. I'll go into a little bit of detail in that particular point, but that is to say, one of the things that The Last of Us was heavily praised for is its world building. It's not just how beautiful the game was made and designed, but there's a lot of stories. There's a lot of stories in the background. So items that you as the player can collect, like letters, notes, that type of thing, they carry stories. And in certain places, you can find a series of notes. And once you put them together, you really do follow the story of the characters that went through that place, how they lived, how they might have died. And in this particular episode, it touches on a doomsday prepper who is gay. And that's kind of like where Ben takes it off into his own political agenda. It's really, he takes it past what the story is actually about. Now, without, ranting on about what Ben did or didn't do and all that stuff, I'll just go on to say this. when you look at the notes and you read the stories of the particular people, it really brings more depth to, it's not just another zombie apocalypse, because these are real stories with real situations. Not that they exist in real life, but these are situations that that are similar to what you can read, or I don't even know what I'm saying, but in any case, these are things that you can relate to, and not just relate to, but you can put yourself in those characters' shoes, because that's how realistic these stories are made. It's not like, oh, I was bit by a zombie, now I'm zombie man or something. No, I mean, there's much more to it. Now, going back to Ben Shapiro, one of his complaints, or exactly what Hasan had been reacting to, was that Ben Shapiro had started off saying that he prefaced that he hadn't played the game, he doesn't know much of the story except for what's on the series, and he described the series as being well produced, beautifully shot, well scripted. However, he does not care about the video game because he doesn't find that it's relevant to the series. Now, where I will agree with him is that for the series, or any series or movies that are based on books, games, or some other story, they do have the responsibility to be able to bring the story and the feelings, the emotions, to actually make the person feel something, even if they have not seen the original property. So, the producers of the series and the writers, their responsibility is, even if the person hasn't played the game, they have to make the series in a way that somebody who is just watching the series and looking at the story for the first time, they don't need to go back to the game to understand what is going on, or to feel the emotions and to go along with the characters. That's where I will agree with him. However, his statement about not caring about the game because he doesn't care if the series is, loyal to the game because it doesn't matter. Well, that's really just an excuse. Just an excuse for him to do the criticisms that he said about the series, or about this episode in particular. Why? Because again, he is a commentator, so his job is not to really commentate and have the people watch the series, but rather his job is to further the agenda, the political agenda that he identifies with. So he has a motive to make this type of content that he's making and to say what he said. So I don't even believe that he even watched the episode, or that he even watches the series. But again, the purpose of the video that Ben made is not to push people to watch the series, but rather it's just kind of like a means to an end, a tool to kind of make his viewers, I wouldn't say lean more towards his political views, but rather, it's just to have people watching because, oh, hey, that's how I see it. At any rate, episode 3 features a character who, again, he's a doomsday prepper. He knows Joel, and in the city where he's at, he's able to create this wide area that is kind of safe because it's filled with traps. So it gets the zombies that are there. It can detect and can trap people who are trying to raid the area. So that's more protection. In the game, well, before I get to where the game is at, in the episode, what transpires is that this person makes his preparations for Doomsday. He has his traps. One day he traps a certain person. A person falls on his traps. And we rescues that person, and in a certain way he falls in love. And that's kind of where it leads. They live happily. The guy who he trapped, he stays with him. He grows strawberries. They live their life until one of them gets cancer, dies, and then the other one follows him. So right now it's just looking like a love story, right? Well, Ben's issue is that they're both gay. He says uh, it has nothing to do with zombies. This episode does nothing to further the plot. He also adds, you know, this is just another part of the liberal agenda. That in this particular situation, in a zombie apocalypse, the most important part is survival, repopulate, this and that. So he really goes into this rant about how this episode with two gay men has nothing to do with the story and has nothing to do with a zombie apocalypse. Now, remember that Ben had said that he is not familiar with the story, with the game, and he doesn't really care. Well, the thing about this is that in the game, where there is a little bit of a difference, is that in the game, the Doomsday Prepper, he's still alive when Joel and Ellie meet up with him, because they do activate a few of his traps. They do actually get trapped in one of them, where Joel is, he hangs upside down, and Ellie barely is able to rescue him. And at that point, he comes out and says, "Oh, it's you too. It's you." And then, he does save them, and in the end. Now, we don't know much about the character, and we don't go into details in the game. However, Ellie does go through his stuff, and then by the time Joel and Ellie leave, Ellie finds these magazines with I can't really remember if it was just muscled men or something like that, but it heavily insinuates that Doom's Prepper is gay. So you do kind of find that, you do figure that out. However, in that area where you're with the Doom's Prepper, there are notes lying around that even before you meet the character, you do find these notes about, from the other guy, the partner, the Doomsday Prepper's partner. And where it differs is that rather than a love story, it's actually a little bit more tragic, because they do find each other, they do live together, they do have a relationship, but because the Doom's Prepper has a very hard personality to deal with, he ends up being fed up and leaves. However, he doesn't survive after he leaves. Short time afterwards, he does die. And the Doom's Prepper, when he finds kind of like the goodbye note left by his partner, he was extremely hurt. He was, well, I was going to say salty, but he was hurt by what he wrote on the note. And so that's where we have those two differences. The series makes it look like a love story where they both died together, and in the game it's more like they both separate, go their separate ways, but one of them dies and the other one survives. Now, Ben goes right into saying, of course, the liberal, about how the leftists are happy and they won't complain because it's an episode with gay men and blah blah blah. Like, that's the reason why people like the episode. And that's not the case. The reason why people like the episode is because it's a love story. He says it has nothing to do with the zombie apocalypse. If you've seen movies, zombie movies, you realize that in zombie movies, in all of them, it's not so much that there's zombies and oh, it's a horror film. It's more that, okay, there's a situation that's widespread, it disrupts daily activities. You have monsters, but the real monsters are the other people, the people who are not the zombies, the people who are taking advantage of others, the people who are forming cults, the people who are ransacking and raiding and stealing from other people. Even if they're more in need than them, they still steal. Those are the real monsters. Not the zombies. The human beings, the ones that remain. Now, Hasan does make a good point where he says, well, of course, the liberal colonists are going to go crazy because that's what they do. And, well, yes, I agree. That's what they do. However, look how different it is. You can say, yes, liberal colonists are praising the episode because it's a love story with two gay people. Okay. They're praising a love story. But now look at what Ben is doing. Because he also has an agenda, remember. And so he's also making his commentary based on, hey, this doesn't make sense, and this is why the left political views are ruining everything. They're ruining a story. They are making, that type of thing. Well, he's actually doing worse off because it's not just, oh, it has gay people. He then goes on this weird rant saying that in a zombie apocalypse, you have to survive and you have to repopulate. Those are the main things. Well, you can't repopulate if you're not thriving. I mean, that would make sense. Because if you're not doing well, then you're not going to be thinking of, oh, I'm going to repopulate. Right? But then from there, he makes this weird connection between, yeah, you have to repopulate. You can't repopulate because they're two gay men. And then goes over to, in Battlestar Galactica, there was a movie or a series, I don't know, but in Battlestar Galactica, they ban abortion, and the president was a leftist in that series. Okay, why are you talking about another franchise when making a commentary on this? It doesn't make sense. Now, I have never seen Battlestar Galactica, so I don't know what he's referring to. He does show a clip where the character who's supposed to be like the president says, because we have to repopulate and we have to ban abortion for now because we need to grow the population. Again, I've not seen Battlestar Galactica, so I don't know the context where that's coming from. But this is where you see his agenda. He's complaining about gay men because you can't grow a child between two men, to make this incredible leap to say, this is why you have to ban abortion. This is why abortion is bad. It doesn't make sense. It really doesn't. Now, just kind of like a quick thing, he does complain that there's an incredible lack of zombies. And the thing is, if zombie movies were just about zombies, it would be quite boring. Because zombies are just, okay, these dead beings are walking and trying to eat you. You run away. And that's it. That's why you need that human element. That's why in zombie movies, in the zombie horror trope, it's not just, here's the monster. It's, okay, you have the added element that humans do evil things when in desperate situations. But even then, you can still see some good in people who will decide to do the right thing. And if you don't believe me, well, think about what happened recently with the pandemic. I mean, technically it's still not over, although I think they said that in May, that's when the president's going to call it as endemic. But what happened with the whole COVID situation? You had people making a whole deal about, oh, face masks are, it's my body, my choice. Or people saying, oh, vaccines are bad and spreading misinformation. Or you had people who were attacking others because, oh, see, you want the vaccine, or oh, you're wearing the face mask, you're going against my beliefs. It's that type of, or oh, you want to enforce face mask in a private business. Oh, that's violating my rights. So you can see that it brought, in many people, it brought the worst of them. So in that sense, we can see a real world example of what happens in this global issue and how people can act crazy. And even the stores, remember, for a time we didn't have soap, we didn't have toilet paper, we didn't even have alcohol, the type that you wipe your hands with. Okay, sorry about that. My water bottle fell over. So anyway, that's what it all comes to, right? People can bring the worst of themselves in extreme situations. And that's part of a zombie trope. That's why Ben's commentary about, oh, how zombie movies are just about zombies. They're not just about zombies. You haven't really seen a zombie movie, and if you have and you're saying all this, it's in bad faith. Because it's really obvious that he has an agenda that he's pushing, and it's just not right. On a final note, and this might be a spoiler, but he complains about the gay characters and how gay characters have nothing to do with zombie apocalypse, with the zombie apocalypse. I'll just say that one of the main characters in The Last of Us is gay. You just don't realize it until a flashback. But yeah, they are gay. So yeah, not only was the episode kind of loyal to the game, it does follow with the zombie tropes, or tropes of a zombie apocalypse. It also, you could say, it can foreshadow the story of some of the other characters. And that's good, because The Last of Us, at the end of the day, was a compelling story with a rich world building that, if you took the time, you were filled with many short stories of the characters that you didn't meet. But because of those stories, you felt that they were part of the overarching theme of the game. And that's all I'm going to say about that. Yes, I just wanted to make a quick... Well, this wasn't that quick, but that's all I wanted to say about that reaction. Hopefully, if you want to watch The Last of Us, go ahead. If you want to watch the reactions, I'll link to a video. Not to Ben's video, but to Hasan. The video that I watched. Well, actually, I technically watched two, but I'm going to link the shorter video. You can watch the longer one if you want to. It's easy to find. So I'll just post the link. At any rate, I hope you're doing well. Stay safe, stay healthy, and just remember, be kind to people around you, because you never know what they're going through. Alright? Talk to you later. Bye-bye.